Welcome to Stop Suicides UK. And today we're visiting a 75-year-old gentleman called James Anderson who lives in Paynton in South Devon. It's a beautiful day, but James has got a story to tell about how he believes that the Child Maintenance Service, formerly the Child Support Agency, has wrecked his life. It's a story about this window. It's a story about the policies and procedures and this chair. But sadly, this is not a story. This is a 31-year reality.
So this is James's incredible TV collection. So how long have you been doing this, James? Collecting and...
Most of my life.
Wow. Hi James, thanks for taking part in this interview today. Tell me what led up to the circumstances that made you contemplate really taking your life.
Well, it all started in 1999, but I'm not going to go through every single month of every year since. It would take far too long. But that's how it began. And I was reported by the mother of the child in question to the CSA, and their demands were just ridiculous, and I simply could not meet them. And as we all know, many people have been affected in exactly the same way, and they just would not listen. In the end, I was late 1 year going back to college. I worked at Dudley College of Technology, and they could see that I was in great distress and quite unable to continue my work. They said, go away, go and see your doctor and make sure he signs you off for at least a month. I was signed off for 6 months and I never went back. So they gave me early retirement at the age of 51 on the grounds of ill health. But they still tried to pursue me. They sent a DEO to the college, a deduction of earnings order, and it was promptly sent back because by that time I'd been off work for 6 months and I went off to half pay, and I simply could not afford to pay anything at all. So after early retirement, I realised that I could no longer proceed. I had to get in lodgers in order to pay the mortgage. So in the end, I thought I'll have to sell the house, but I did not want to move to a smaller and cheaper place. And in the end, I thought, I know, I'll go and live in Paynton. And that's exactly what I did. They continued to send me maintenance assessments, at some point totaling £605 a month, when by that time my income was about £705 a month. So obviously I couldn't possibly pay this. My income was a small teacher's pension because I'd taken early retirement, and through various advisors I was also put on incapacity benefit. That continued until the year 2003, when the CSA finally relented and said, from now on, we're assessing you at zero. By that time, the so-called arrears had risen to almost 18,000 a year. But in spite of all the threats of court action and so on, the CSA never collected it. After 2003, nothing happened for about 12 years. Then in 2015, I had a letter saying, this is what you owe, and we're going to collect it, but they didn't. Fast forward to the year 2020, by which time the CSA had changed into the CMS, and they did begin collecting it. And it was quite easy for them to do because they could take it out of my teacher's pension, which is what they did. A year later, of course in between, the correspondence flowed between myself and them, and I got absolutely nowhere. Everything they either ignored or contradicted. Then in 2021, I suddenly found out that my bank balance had been reduced by half. I had £20,000 in the bank, which resulted from the death of my mother, my father having died before that. And the result was that I got this £20,000 out of the estate, and I put it into a Santander 123 account, which pays, at the time, paid great interest and cash back on direct debits. So resulting in something like £50 a month, which was a useful extra income. But that's where the money came from. Then overnight I found that nearly £10,000 had gone missing. And on investigation I found out that it had been taken by the CMS on behalf of the CSA. I went to the bank and they said there's nothing we can do, and I went straight to the pub and drank even more heavily than I had been before. A few days later, I was in torment. I was inebriated most of the time, quite unconsoled and inconsolable. And on the following Sunday, just a few days after I found that this £10,000 had been taken, they sent me a text in the afternoon saying your maintenance payment is now due. It wasn't a maintenance payment, of course, it was a payment of the so-called arrears. And I didn't get the opportunity to do anything about it. But what really led to it was the loss of the £10,000, and then sending these ridiculous texts, which were quite unnecessary, on Sunday afternoon. Then there was a second one, and at that point I was screaming. I lost everything. I lost my mind, and I went to the window and jumped. I landed on a plastic garden chair, and that effectively saved my life.
So that's the window you jumped from up there, yeah?
It is. And there's the chair.
And the chair serves as
a constant reminder not to do it again. A friend of mine said, we'll keep that, I'm going to hang it on the wall. And because I've got limited mobility, I can't possibly get up there to take it down, but so I'm quite happy to leave it there.
So with all of this, did the CMS have any idea that you were struggling?
They must have known, and I've got copies of all the correspondence right back to 1999, and in particular a letter which ended with something like, you are pushing me over the edge, thinking in terms of what I'd planned to do. And there was no response, nothing. They didn't write back to say, for example, we're really sorry that these things have happened. And no.
So there was no care process, no welfare, no checking?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
When the ambulance people came, they had to break down the door to get in here. I was taken to Plymouth Hospital, to the trauma centre, not to Torbay, because I was in such a state. And the ambulance man or someone said, it's amazing that you managed to survive. I was 72 at the time, it's 3 years ago. At your age you should have died on impact in spite of the chair. You're unlikely to survive surgery. If your heart stops, do you want to be resuscitated? And I said, no, I've had enough. I've just tried to kill myself to get away from the CMS, because it seems to be the only way of doing it. And they gave me a form which actually confirmed what I'd said, and on that form it says, do not resuscitate, patient's wishes. Well, I gradually got better. I was moved to Brixham Cottage Hospital, and I spent quite some time there, and eventually came home, of course. But I could barely walk, even with a Zimmer frame. But as the years passed, I managed to find more mobility, and the rest of the money that I had, I was actually scared of leaving it in the bank. Remember, my mum had left me 20,000, half of it was taken. So I thought, right, there's just no point keeping it there. They'll just take the rest at the drop of a hat. And they lied, by the by, to do it. They wrote me a letter saying, because you have not paid, I thought, ridiculous. Of course I've paid. I can't stop them paying. It's taken directly from my teacher's pension. So I spent the money on buying a mobility scooter, £7,500, and I had electric doors fitted to the garage because the old ones were in a terrible state and too heavy for me to open. So I now use the garage as a safe place to keep the scooter and an electrical outlet to charge it. And that's the way things have remained to this very day.
So are you still struggling with the impact the Child Maintenance Service and the former CSA
Yes, I am.
have had on
literally 24 hours a day. It torments me all day long. It's the first thing I think about in the morning, and it disturbs my sleep at night, such as it is. And often, even after a lot to drink and taking amitriptyline, which was originally prescribed as an antidepressant, I noted its soporific effect, i.e. helped to put me to sleep. And often, even with the alcohol and the amitriptyline, I still can't sleep. So I tend to snooze during the day, but it is always with me.
And just finally, James, what do you think should be done about it?
Well, obviously the CMS is a notoriously indecent, if not even criminal organisation, and it should be closed down. Closed down. Maintenance can be dealt with by magistrates, who I have to say have always treated me very well. So that, for example, after 6 months away from work and going on to half pay, I also applied to the courts, and they said, fine, we accept what you say, you're not obliged to pay any money, more money in maintenance, and all arrears were remitted. That was partially because I also had a daughter 12 years earlier, and so I was paying maintenance and I was just unable to pay anything else. The woman, of course, was absolutely furious, and I said, well, you brought it on yourself. You should never have gone to the CSA. They are notorious. They inflate what you're supposed to pay, and they really do not care a damn about you or your life or the possibility that you might kill yourself to end it all.